Hello there, Niiamah, Shaun here, and thank you so much for letting me be a part of your journey. I do it again. It's not just about me, it's about us. And today we have five incredible, stupendous, and awe-inspiring outliers who are joining us for a roundtable conversation here on Outliers at the Roundtable. We're going to see where the conversation goes because what I do know is that each of these outliers continuously choose to play the game in alignment with them and have broken what most people would consider norm even though it's normal for them. Right. Let's see how they're able to use that to continue to bring out their impact and to lead out in the world. So let's give you a chance to get to know these outliers. We'll start off with Patricia and then we'll go to Shaun.
Well, hello, this is Patricia, like Niiamah said. I am here to bring awareness or try to bring awareness to the issue of sexual abuse, specifically childhood sexual abuse. I think we are a society that doesn't pay enough attention to the issue. And when I started my podcast, I was just the next door neighbor who wanted to put my words, my experiences out there for people to listen to anyone that they don't know, but has a story they can relate to.
That's awesome.
In that way, I mean, sorry,
Yeah.
in that way, I was, of course, my goal was to help others realize that they're never alone in their pain, in their struggles as survivors.
And what's the name of your podcast, Patricia?
The podcast is called Survivors of Sexual Abuse. Let's talk.
Thank you for being here. Let's go to Shaun and then Cha-Cha.
Hello, I'm Shaun Wilbraham. I'm a freelance living in Japan. I teach English and Spanish to kids, adults, teenagers, you name it. I teach them. I'm here to tell stories and share my story, be a part of our story together. My podcast is called Walk the Shaun, and I started this on the principle that everyone has their own story, and I wanted to provide a platform in which anyone could listen anywhere in the world. And that's why I'm here to be here.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
keep it simple. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And Shaun, toward the end of that, there we lost a little bit of your audio. We can still hear you, but it just came through a lot softer. So just in case
Okay.
there's anything with your microphone, that'll help the rest of the conversation. All right. Thanks much. Cha-Cha and then Lisannie.
No? Is that better?
Yeah, I think it's about the same. Yep. All right. Cha-Cha and then Lisannie.
Hi, everybody. I am Chanelle Corbin, affectionately known around the world as Cha Cha. I am the host of the Off the Charts podcast that you can find on YouTube and anywhere that you can find podcasts. I created this series pretty much to help people shift their paradigms and to break the conditioning that they're used to. Because if you don't change, like if nothing changes, nothing changes. And once you understand that your habitual habits are leading to the results that you get in your life, you'll start to change your habits. And because I work in the finance industry as a professional day trader, I feel like it's important for people to understand how the experiences that they have are affecting the money that they make. And to get them to understand that the money that they make is also going to be directly related to the impact that they have, not only changing their own life, but the lives of the people around them. So it's a heavy focus on mindset and more so not getting people to be more like me, but getting them to be more like their best selves by unlearning everything that they've learned about money and programming what they actually want to believe and attract into their life. So that's why I'm here. I want to get rich with.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're here. Thank you very much for that. I like the way that we're looking at things. All right, and then why don't we wrap things up around here? Yep.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisannie. I'm from the Note to Self podcast. With Note to Self, we just try to focus on creating a safe space to have bigger conversations. This idea actually came along when I was 15. It started off as a club in high school, more about like passing a positive note down to other people. But as I grew up, I realized like the human experience is really layered and it's very complicated. And I realized that was more of like a temporary thing. And the best thing we could do is really like have these conversations and realize in a lot of ways how we're all connected. And it just takes a lot of like vulnerability and transparency and realizing that we have to be the ones to set the tone to do that, and also realizing like we're also students to life. Like we're going to be constantly learning, constantly failing, constantly growing, and we wanted to just have a podcast to set the tone for that and be able to show others they could also do that.
Fantastic. It's great to have you here. Yep. Atiya, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah. So my name's Atiya. I am Lisannie's co-host on the Note to Self podcast. And just to kind of add to what she was talking about with the origin of the podcast, Lisannie and I have been best friends for over 10 years now. And growing up, we were there for each other a lot of times where we've dealt with some traumatic events, mental illness, and just trying to really figure out how to be like an advocate in each other's lives. So I feel like over time within our young adulthood into our adulthood now, it just became natural to us to kind of create some type of platform because within our friendship, we just felt like, like we got something good going here. Like we have these really amazing conversations, we have these really amazing points, and we go out into our communities and we just don't see it, those conversations being replicated anywhere else. So we just were like, yeah, we need to get this word out like immediately, because if nothing else, this will allow people to become the better version of themselves and kind of just push people to be more aware of like their emotional wellness, their mental health, and how a lot of the ways that we're conditioned by society, how it kind of plays into the negative aspects that come into our life. So we're just trying to like wipe our hands of all that and start something great for everybody.
Well, thank you for bringing yourselves here. Thank you for bringing that greatness to this conversation. And honestly, for each of you, thank you for starting, because I would not be in space with you. We wouldn't be sharing space together had you not decided to start and stand for something out in the world. There's enough of us in this conversation, but we may not go deep into the things that you actually stand for. But I'm glad. Like, I want to make sure we got all of you have your podcast out here, Outliers. You're going to get to know the people behind the podcast, and I invite you to go to each of their spaces and spend more time in their spaces so you can like be more rooted and immersed in what they talk about on a regular basis. Today, I like to talk to them as from the outlier lens, from and dealing with the challenges of stepping into things that in the way that you may have. So I'm going to start off with Patricia, and I'm going to go to Shaun. I'm going to probably follow the same order so that outliers get a chance to like associate the the voice and the names, right? Um, but I like to start out here with Patricia. Tell me something here. Like, I feel like you bring in you stepped into something that is a really important cause for you, right? And at the same time, it may not be like an easy place to step into. So for any outlier that's out there right now that is wondering to themselves, like, who am I to shift something where I'm successful enough, everything's stable enough, at least on the outside, everything looks good, but I'm called to step into something larger than what I was thinking. Can you speak to what brought you to make that shift and how you
Sure,
brought it to life?
sure, of course. I've been on my quest to recovery. I've been working on myself because I feel that as a survivor of sexual abuse as a child, it's been a long life recovery process. Although it took me many, many years, most of my life, to actually realize I have to work on myself. Through this process of helping myself, I realized there is so many people like myself who feel alone, who feel completely isolated because they don't trust others because of what we have been through. In my recovery groups, I learned that, the more you share, the more you help. And by putting my story out there, my very personal story, I help myself as well. And I have received so many messages of gratitude. And also in the groups that I keep talking with, it's it's just an incredible experience. I can say that maybe I don't see it as a business, or I didn't see it as a business, and that is my truth. But a business gives something to people that need something. I am not getting money out of the podcast, but I am getting so much more. And that has made me a different person. All the people out there who has a struggle with one way of manifestation of sexual abuse understands that when we share, we get better. We are supported, we get stronger. And it's just an amazing experience to hear from people. Thank you, Patricia. This, and that happened. Or a husband or a girlfriend of a man that said, I didn't know that, there were so many people, because I actually started a podcast saying, reading actually statistics from our health system about how many women, how many men are sexually abused as children. So that was my story of how I felt inspired to put my story out there. And now I'm even more inspired. And there is the business part now. I realized, thanks to your podcast, Niiamah, that, well, I guess I might be able to make some money putting a book out there, which is supposed to come out next spring. Is the goal to make money out of it? It wasn't when I put the podcast. The podcast is free for anyone to hear it. I just keep paying my fees to be out there. But if I can make some money and maybe retire a little earlier, that would be wonderful. But I am making that effort. I want to share more and more detail. I just really want people to feel that they're never ever alone, and there is recovery. You don't have to be breaking all the time when you remember what happened to you. There is always a light at the end of the tunnel. And maybe I said too much.
Oh no, you haven't, and I appreciate it. You just got into one of like the special like buzzwords for me, which is too much. There's no be all of you here. My ask would just be like, if you said what you needed to say, put a period. No need to repeat yourself as you go through. But I'm grateful for you, Patricia. I wrote down here, the more you share, the more you help. The more you share, the more you help. And there's something in there that like actually feels really freeing as I hear that. Can I ask you, when did you start the podcast?
I started it 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You know anything about recording anything.
Yep.
And it was like, I had my computer in front of me, and I'm like, I called my son and I said, help me how to figure this out. We figured it out, and on I went, recording my voice with my accent, and just telling my truth. And I had some guests too, but I realized, it's such an amateur recording and everything, but it helped people, and I am so grateful for that. I am so grateful for that. You have no idea. And now I have more details about the abuse and what I went through, and rape, etc. And it's going to be in the written world.
Thanks. Well, thank you, Patricia. Thank you for starting that, because part of what I get is that like you started and you keep following the breadcrumbs around like what's the next level here, what's the next level for both your own recovery and that's the thing to help others as well. So thank you for that, Shaun. I'm going to come to you now here. Take us to what got you started with sharing a message and what keeps you going.
So I didn't originally intend to be a teacher. I was always a language student myself, and I always felt like at times my own voice was not as loud as it should be. I choose to do what I do every day to get myself out there and put my own personal brand in, as Patricia said. You've got to put your own stamp in the world and what you do. I started my podcast 4 years ago, 2020. I didn't really know what I was doing. I procrastinated and said, yeah, I'm going to do it. 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 Didn't do it. But then I did do it. One day I just decided out of the blue, spontaneously, okay, stop worrying what people are going to think. And that is one of my driving forces now. It's it keeps me going, to stand in my own light and be that, whether that be for myself, for others, for students, or I don't know, whoever who it could be. It keeps me going, and it's the reason why I get up in the morning, just to live my life. Really, it doesn't really have to be anything more than that. And I like to keep things simple.
Yeah. Like stop worrying what other people are going to be thinking. Like easier said than done. I want to make sure we put it out there, right? It's like it's easy to be here, from where I'm sitting here and be like, yeah, like just stop worrying about it, outliers, and just go for it. It's like no, there's risk involved. So I want to like really acknowledge you for your what you built in along the way there. Like,
Yes, I mean, there was always barriers and stuff like that. I mean, whether they are real or whether I create them, that is, for me personally, I was my own worst enemy at times, and I think we all kind of have that kind of fear over our shoulders, or at least at one time we've felt that. And I think to push through that, in theory, yeah, it's like, yeah, it's just me against me. That's it. It involves a lot of unearthing, and you do have to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, okay, objectively, this is who I am. And I think that if you don't know that, you will see recurring patterns and recurring cycles in your life. And if you don't notice them, they will play out subconsciously. And I think the idea for me, subconsciously, why I became a teacher is because I would like to be a kind of guide for others. Not necessarily this is the way, but as in, oh, have you considered this? And just kind of let them figure that out on their own accord for themselves.
Uh, thank you, thank you. We're gonna keep going. I'm coming to you, Cha, and then like this first round, I'm gonna be a little bit more like rigid in how I'm going about doing things. But please, like, just know that like y'all can unmute. We can build off each other. Like it really does work very well. Um, so Cha, let me get a sense from you here. You take us to what made you say like, hey, not only am I like going to be doing this full time, but I'm going to actually help people like get into the mindset, get into the money of it all, and keep playing out from there. What was your impetus for you?
Well, I initially started my podcast around 3 years ago. It was 2021. At that point in time, I was just a year into my trading journey, and I was always just trying to just stay positive myself. So when I actually started trading, it was through a network marketing opportunity. Like I've since gotten out of that, but it was so much more than just what we were doing on the charts. We would actually have a lot of mindset calls, and I was actually surprised. There was so many just little sentences or quotes that I was hearing, and every time I would hear something, it would like different things would just spark a light inside of me and just completely shifted the way I was thinking and the way I was acting. So I was like, if this is happening for me, somebody who is so confident in who I am and where I'm going and what I'm doing, then I know there are people that are a lot less confident than me who also need that shift. And it's super important to like understand that success does not come before happiness. Happiness comes before success, and all that comes with really shifting your mindset. And the book that really got me to understand that concept was The Happiness Advantage, because everybody can sit there and tell you, be happy, smile, and do all these things. But then when you actually see there is scientific evidence that says, when like, I love that book specifically because of the fact that there's so much science and reports that says, choose happiness, choose to be positive, choose to think positive, and watch how things actually shift in your life. So it was one of those things where I heard it, I put it into action immediately. And because I was already teaching my Forex education classes, that's my on the chart stuff. I said, well, let me take it off the charts, because if these people don't believe that they can be successful, if they don't believe that they can make money, if they don't believe that they deserve to live a full and abundant life, they're not going to take the action steps, because the thoughts that you have really are going to influence the actions that you take. And the actions that you take are going to influence the results that you have in your life. And it literally all starts in your mind. One of the biggest things I heard that made me start the podcast and continue to just work on mindset with people is, if you didn't choose your own name, it was like, how many times have you heard your first name before you realized that that was your name? It was just the result of conditioning. So if For example, Niiamah, if I was to tell you that your name is Steve, you're going to argue with me because your name is not Steve. Your name is Niiamah, and you only know that because that is what you've been told, that is what you believe, and that is what you accept. So it's the same thing when it comes to making money and being success and finding yourself in a more just abundant life. And I've seen the shift for myself. Like, I'm a very faithful to the process, and I've seen the shift in so many people that I've had the opportunity to interact with. So that's really what keeps me going. Some people don't even know what they're doing wrong. They don't know that they're thinking wrong. They don't know that just because your parents or how you grew up, they don't know that they may have taught you the wrong things because that was a result of their conditioning. So it's really going to be you taking your life into your hands and deciding what it is that you want.
I
So
like this
me,
element that you bring in around like the conditioning part here. And
mhm.
I appreciate this here because like I think about it. My name is Niiamah. Normally I'll just let
Oh,
it go, but
Niiamah, sorry.
I'm like, oh, like it's literally happening. It's like Inception right now, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh
sorry.
no, but like please don't apologize. So one of the things that y'all will know, like it's like in my platforms, I love to spend like make it real. Right. It's so
Mhm.
easy right now to like hear something one day from someone and then come back in the space and then kind of repeat it without it actually being embodied, without actually being lived and all that. And so part of the way that I create proof around the outliers way is just to live in an outlierly way. Right. And so I love like you brought it in. You're like, hey, if you do this, like there's gonna be dissonance. I was like, there will be dissonance if I don't if I don't like bring this
Exactly.
in here. So yes, like thank you for bringing this in here. I'm going to
You're
go to
welcome.
Lisannie and Atiya now. I'm going to give y'all a different question because there was something around what was showing up when y'all were talking that I really got the sense that there was ongoing progress and progression, right? Like both from the friendship and the podcast and so on and so forth. And so I'd love for you to speak to any outlier here that's listening that um, kind of feels like they're like at the beginning of something. And none of us are at the beginning. Like I always say, like when I ask people to tell me their story, they're like, where do you want me to go? I'm like, every story starts in the middle. So like we're fine, you know? And outliers, that goes for you too. So like even if you're thinking you're beginning, you're actually just continuing something that's already been started. But there was a real feel of like evolution and growth. And I would love to see how like if y'all can speak to how you've leaned into the evolution of the podcast, your friendship, and the impact that you're making out over time.
I mean, I feel like first thing that comes to me is just like the love of learning.
Mm.
That's what really I feel like catapulted us to wanting to like get this information out. I would sit home, and it was mostly through the fact that when I was younger, I got diagnosed with depression. And I would just, sit in my head and just like, I don't understand none of this. I don't understand anything that's happening to me. Why is like, I was just trying to come to an understanding of like why my life is like this. So I went online, I did research, I learned about generational trauma, I learned about depression, I learned about black sheeps within family. I learned like almost every like word you could think of, and I feel like through that it just took me on a journey kind of evolution, like you were saying, and at a really young age at that. Like I would say like I probably started with this during like my sophomore year of high school, and from there on I just feel like I was just flying, and to the point where it kind of got lonely because I felt like a lot of my peers and even my family couldn't understand me anymore because they haven't had this series of events in their life that led them to really learn this stuff so that they can make a change in their life. So I would definitely say at the root of the evolution, it can feel kind of lonely, but that kind of just makes you want to find your people even more.
Yeah, I think the root of everything is generational trauma and the unburdening of it, and realizing at some point it was up to us, and it was up to us to set a new tone. And with this new information, we know that this could almost not make it easier, but make it almost more manageable and more beneficial by sharing this information and being so vulnerable on a platform. But for especially people that are starting off, especially if they want to make their business their own personal brand, because note to self is who we are at the end of the day. And like I said, this idea really started at like 15. I knew from a very young age that whatever I did, it was to help people, and it wasn't going to be under being, you know, a politician or whatever the case was. It was going to be under my terms and what felt comfortable and what felt human. And like I said, it kind of grew, the idea kind of grew over time, and it continues to grow over time. Like, and there's going to be times where we had to step away even before we had a podcast, and because life is going to happen. And I like to think all those moments happen for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. And if it's something that excites you, something that lights you up, it will grow with you and you will grow with it. And note to self was never about getting money out of it at the end of the day. It was never about anything. And that's how I knew it was part of not just my alignment, but part of our team's alignment. Because it's like now creating more into a brand that's outside of a podcast. And yeah, like I said, you'll just be willing to grow with it when it's something that you're supposed to do, and it brings you constant excitement because you're going to be willing to do the work. You're going to be willing to educate yourself. You're going to be willing to put in just the work overall for it. And yeah, it's just continue to grow outside of a podcast. We are doing more like events where we bring these safe spaces and these bigger conversations to communities. And we're actually going to have our first event in November in a couple weeks. And the whole process of it is so much learning, but it's so exciting. And there's just so much more that, like, I have notebooks filled with so many ideas and what it's going to be. And I think we just all have the same excitement. We definitely connect as best friends to this because, like Atiya said, you kind of find your people along the way when you are growing.
Well, I'm glad that you both found each other, one, and that you keep expanding the conversation from there. And I think the spirit of expanding the conversation, like, please know that from here on out, like, if you have something to say, you want to add into it, go ahead and do it. We'll manage the time together appropriately, but I just want to make sure like we get that round table. Y'all have some good things, and sometimes I can be the blocker, and I'm still learning like how to be like yeah. Well, no, like I'm like okay, and now you like I'm like that's not what I want in the world. Like I just want us to play. That being said, I'm gonna put one more thing in this space, and then we'll see where it goes. Right. So, look, there's a component here about like leveling up that I think is really like that keeps happening with outliers, and I'm going to leave this one as kind of an open point here. Whoever wants to make a point, they can step in. But I'm curious about like a belief that you had that needed to level up, that you needed to level up in order to really play at the level that you wanted to play, in order to play at the level of impact you wanted to play, or um, and that's kind of like in the elevated component, but on the other side of it is like in the depth of it to like, so what's a belief that you needed to level up in order to actually show up as you do now? Is this calling anyone right now?
Yeah, that I'm not good enough.
Tell us, Marshall.
I am good enough, and that's the truth. And that everyone else is good enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I am strong enough, that I can share. And to everybody's point, sharing, we're here, we're sharing what our experiences are in our podcasts. And we have so many similar things like, growing up with depression, all these stigmas about our mental health and what we've been taught when we were children, and our children's thoughts as well. It's when we share, we can learn so much, and our growth is just infinite. It's just incredible. I really like what ChaCha said about happiness comes before success. And I can relate to that because I could not have been able to just decide to go for the podcast had I not been feeling better about life, hopeful about life, hopeful that I would be getting to a good place where I was strong enough, healthy enough to put my words out there against all odds, against, so many fears that one may have. So just getting all that happiness into our lives and or every little happiness, any little moment that we have, we can just focus in it and multiply it and make it grow. And it is possible, no matter how low we are in our lives, it is possible. And I know it's really hard to believe because I've been there. I've been there. But guys, I love sharing this space with you. I think we can do so much for people. We can do so much for so many others that are listening, hopefully very soon.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in and say I agree with Patricia because happiness truly is a choice. And that's something that I had to accept and understand in order to shift my perspective. I feel like it's just always these quotes running around in my head, like faith and fear can't exist in the same space. And just, I just, a lot of these things I had to accept because the same time that I was spending thinking about a problem and stressing about it, I could have put that same energy into figuring out a solution. The same time and energy I was put like stuck thinking, like Shaun said, I don't deserve this. I'm not good enough. I just had to train myself to have counter thoughts, like literally changing my thoughts to change my habitual habits, to change my actions. Because if I didn't believe that I deserve to live a rich and full and abundant life, then I wouldn't even try to take the steps to do that. So that's really, it's, I'm always going to come back to conditioning because that's something that I had to choose. Like I can sit here and be sad and miserable that things haven't worked out, or I can just put steps into creating a life that I want to create because the only way that I'm not going to get there is if I stop going. Like if you were going on a trip and you were traveling and your destination was, let's just say, happiness, you're not going to let rain stop you from getting there. You're not going to let a flat tire stop you from getting there. You're not going to let a setback traffic, nothing's going to stop you from getting somewhere once you set that intention. And I just had to accept that for myself. Everything I want is within reach and it's up to me to actually get it. I can't wait for anybody to put opportunities in front of me. Like as long as I keep walking forward and keep walking straight, eventually I'm going to run into the people I need to meet, the opportunities I need to meet, the happiness I'm trying to get. But I just can't sit around and do nothing. Like I have to make the choice to change my life and to actually choose happiness instead of fear. Like I'm all about faith, because if the future hasn't happened yet, why would I be scared when I could just be excited? So
Well, thank you so much there. Like this is something that I'm glad we're bringing into the mix here. Atiya, Lisannie, is there anything that's calling out to you to say or add to this component? If not, I'm going to have a different question for you.
Yeah, kind of just basically what everyone else was saying. It's like you really have to feel like you deserve these good things to happen to you and that you're worthy of it. And at the end of the day, you're the one that would be holding yourself back if you don't feel like you do deserve those things. Because we are putting ourselves out there for criticism. And as much as things could happen, you can make a mistake, great things could happen too. And you have to believe you genuinely do deserve those things.
Well, thanks for that, Lisannie. I want to, you said you could make a mistake. All right, let's play with that here for a bit here. Uh, what y'all may not know here, and I have this game that I play with myself as this goes on. That it's a funny thing that I like to see, like how much can I actually put up? What are the things that I'm trying to hide that I can actually put up front? So what y'all may not know is about like 10, maybe 15 minutes ago, I had a full cup of water that just spilled everywhere. And so like I'm just like you can't see it now, but I'm like sloshing. I'm like kind of swimming. Right? That's why it's like yeah. And it's fun for me because again, like I choose not to edit things. I like to like just like let the realness be real. And what I found over time is that like in being honest about things, I've been able it's actually helped me to get to a place where there's so much less can phase me. I don't remember who said it, but someone brought in nervous systems, you know, and it's like, yeah, we have that opportunity to keep growing and expanding from that here. So I am curious here. We'll call it a funny fail this time around, right? But like, oftentimes, one of my mentors said to me, he said, people often judge how they feel on the inside with how others look on the outside. We judge how we feel on the inside, or we compare how we feel on the inside with how others look on the outside, right? And so you'll find with me that I'm constantly like, by the way, this happened. By the way, this is the reality of it. I can make it look cleaner, but that's not actually what the realness was. So I'll be curious for you all here if there's what I'll call a funny fail, something that most other people wouldn't have even known was taking place, or something that went off, and you're like, it ended up it could have been something negative, but like in an attempt to let people see like beyond what we hear. I would love to see if there's anything that comes to mind that they'd like to share. Ty, I see you.
Yeah. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything specific, but I will touch on the fact that 2 years ago, when we were like pushing out our first season, we were very like focused on perfection. We wanted all the pieces to fit together perfectly. We wanted to be the most professional. We wanted to present like we have all the information and we're the experts almost. And it wasn't, I feel like we found that it wasn't something that we were going to be able to continue to keep up consistently. And circumstances, natural circumstances just caused us to kind of like take a step back and take a year to really like refine our brand and like what we need to change something. So I feel like having that like that thought of like perfection in our ear was kind of bringing us down more than we thought. So but this time coming back, we've been able to just like kind of, as you said, make room for the imperfections and show your mistakes. And we're not always perfect. And what we're finding is like that's why a lot of people like us, because we're not perfect, because we are relatable, because we are exactly who is watching or listening, you know. So I feel like that's one thing that kind of sparked in my head when you asked that question. Perfection is never going to be something that is attainable for anyone. So just be yourself. I feel like be someone that you're proud of. That's something that I always say. And yeah, that's what's important to me.
Thanks, Atiya. Let's see, Sean, do you have anything you want to bring on this?
Yeah, I always think there's perfection in the imperfection. So you say no one can be perfect. I think that everyone is a perfect version of themselves, regardless of what they are. That's my own personal view, but there you go.
I like that. Like there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like you're already done.
You
You
are
know?
you.
Yeah.
No, just what Cha said, happiness, and whatnot. I there's a British philosopher who taught in at the University of California theology called Alan Watts, and he talks about the future and the past are non-existent. Everything that happens to us happens in the present moment now. Specifically, when I teach, I feel imposter syndrome. So I'm kind of the the old Scooby-Doo analogy, you're the man in the mask, and am I really meant to be here? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And those doubts that creep in. So, I agree with what we've all been saying. And, that's something that I don't often try to show. I tend to be extroverted, but I also have a very, very deep introverted side as well. And some mesh between the two is when the cog's going, that's probably when the music starts to happen.
Yeah, I appreciate that from the standpoint of the doubts and everything that comes in here. It's I love to think of ourselves as whole people. Chacha, it looked like you might have wanted to add something in here. So let me make sure we bring you in.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say in regards to failure in general, we just have to learn to accept it and actually look forward to it because basically like everybody said, you're not going to be perfect. So the sooner that you learn to accept that failure as a part of the process, the sooner that you can just get over those hurdles. And that's something that I just had to deal with as a trader. I don't know if you guys know much about day trading or just investing, but you're going to lose. Like you're absolutely going to lose. There's no such thing as a 100% win rate, and once you accept that, you'll stop internalizing every time you get something wrong. Like learning so many things on the charts has taught me how to navigate my life off the charts as far as like having discipline, as far as having consistency, having emotional control. Like trading taught me to do all of these things. There was no way that I was going to be consistently profitable and successful if I was going to get mad every time I took a loss, as if that wasn't a possibility. Every time I hop on the charts, it's a 50% chance I'm going to make money in that trade or I'm going to lose money in that trade. So just accepting literally that failure is a part of the process. And really, I'm not saying create failures for yourself, but really start to have fun with it because every time you fail, that's literally an opportunity for you to improve. That's like the best thing that could have happened to you actually. And it's really not a roadblock. It's more like a stepping stone to help you literally improve and get better. And had I not failed so much at the beginning of my journey, just with trading myself or teaching or trying to connect with people, then I wouldn't be where I am now. Because once you fail so many times, you literally just be like, wow, I'm not a failure. I just failed sometimes. Like, and then you just move on and you just start to accept it. So you can expect those failures and know how to handle them going forward.
I appreciate you, Chacha. Thank you for that. Um, one of the things it's like you're gonna lose. Like something about that, just like again, freeing, right? Like it's funny because as we have these conversations, I realize how much I'm holding on to. Patricia, please.
I don't know if I like to use the word failure to tell you the truth. I think it's just whenever we don't get what we're aiming for, I'd like to call it as a challenge. It's a challenge. And if we don't have challenges, we don't learn. So the failures, the challenges are there to help us grow. And you know what? If we make mistakes, we make mistakes. That's just life. Nobody, as you all have said, nobody's perfect. No one, no one, no one. And I think the courage that we have to put our words out there, the courage to share our experiences, our knowledge, our desires, everything out there for everyone. It's a challenge. And it's a challenge that is helping us. It's a challenge that can be overcome and can be helpful to others. And I don't think there's any better gift than that.
Well, I appreciate you all. And I'm listening to this here from the component here of getting started and staying started and allowing things to keep evolving along the way, whether you run into failures, whether you run into challenges, like, and just allowing yourself to like embrace the perfection of imperfection along the way. Like y'all, like oh, and I can't leave this out here because Chacha, you brought in happiness, and once you did, like there was we all kind of just resonated with it. So deeply appreciative of you. Somehow we are at time for today, and I get it because time keeps moving. But what I want to do is give two things. I want to give each of you an opportunity to share. How outliers can continue down the journey with you, as well as like an insight, a quick insight that you got from the conversation. And the insight for me is something that outliers are good right now. What's an insight that you're walking away with? And if you're not walking away with anything from here, like that's fine. You can just say that. And that's good too. And outliers, from your standpoint here, as you're listening to this, like there's been a lot of greatness in this conversation. My ask is that you share this with one person in your life who you think is great as well, and have them get a chance to be a part of this conversation so they know about both what we talked about, but also each of these worlds that are being created and the spaces that are being created out there for everyone. I'm laughing, Shaun. Shaun, you got me. Shaun's playing around with us. So with that being said, I'd like to start off here with Chacha. Chacha, what's an insight that you got from today's conversation, and how can people continue the journey with you?
Well, one thing I took away from today's conversation is that all entrepreneurs literally go through the same process at different points in time. And there's just some fundamental truths that you have to accept if you want to be successful at anything. So one of them, you have to start. And the second thing is you have to keep going. So those are my takeaways from today's conversation. I mean, if you guys like to stay in contact with me, you can follow me over on Instagram at Money Mantra Cha, or you can find me on YouTube at the Money Mantra Official. So thank you for having me, Niiamah.
Ooh, that feels good. I know who I am. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chacha. Why don't we go to Patricia?
Ooh. One thing that I've gotten is that, yes, we all have to have a drive to get where we want to get. And we all have to be in a safe space, in a good mental space as well. Know that we are warriors and we can move forward. And I hope that just as your podcast, mine can help others. And again, like following Chacha's example, I'll tell you again, my podcast is Survivors of Sexual Abuse. Let's talk. And thank you so much for having us, Niiamah. And thank you, everyone, for sharing all your knowledge.
Thank you for being a part of this here, Patricia. Why don't we go to Shaun?
So I'm a hard man to get in contact with sometimes. I'm generally very busy. But my email is wilbrahamshaun@gmail.com. That's my professional email if anyone wants to reach out. I'm on Facebook. I don't tend to use Instagram or other stuff because I just don't.
It's not there.
Time.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I learned from today, your story is my story is your story, and together we've created what we've created. And thank you everyone for your time. It's when I started this, it was 6 o'clock in the morning in Japan. Another 2 hours I'll be in work, and it's raining down very heavily outside, but rainy outside, sunny inside. Keep it short and sweet.
Thank you, Shaun. Thank you for like showing up here. I see some people like, what, 6 a.m.? It's like, yeah. Like he's like he chooses to play. I like the way you play. Atiya will come to you, and then Lisannie will wrap up with you today.
Yeah, one thing that I learned just from listening to all of you on the podcast is it just reminded me that we're all here for a unique purpose, and I just think it's so beautiful. And I think it's amazing to see, like, we could have all of our different paths and our different I guess, like, points of discussion. For example, like, we are doing something, I guess you could say, similar to what Patricia's doing, but then Cha and Shaun, they're doing something completely different, but we can all come together and relate within that as humans. And I just think that's beautiful.
I think basically the same thing. It's just really nice to see that we're all a little scared, we're all a little nervous, but we're all falling forward and we're doing things that excite us. And we don't even have to be doing this, but we are. And I just love to see it. And I loved hearing what everyone had to say. And I'm very grateful to be here with all of you.
Yes.
And
so for Instagram, our podcast is called Note to Self Podcast. We are on Spotify podcast and Apple Podcast, but you can find us on Instagram at nts.audio. We also do have a Facebook page, the Note to Self page.
Yeah, it's literally just the self page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you go to our Instagram, you'll find everything else.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Thank you so much for having us, though. We really appreciate it and enjoyed this.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. I'm looking forward to us being able to add on and grow from this conversation. And also, like, honestly, what I'm thinking about is like, I hope you all stay connected because there's a lot of greatness that's happening in this space here. And I appreciate you taking the time and to share your experience and for cultivating those experiences. And outliers, this is the third time I want to say it, but I'm going to put it out there. Like, stay in their worlds, get to know them, get to see what they're doing. Cause there's a lot of greatness in this space, and not greatness from like an extroverted element, but it's just like, just awesome people, and I recommend, and who are up to awesome things. All right. So with all that being said, thank you so much here, and remember, outliers, be you on purpose. Journey on.